September 2025. Headlines erupt. Charlie Kirk, dead. A political voice silenced, a nation divided, and questions with no easy answers. Was this just one act of violence, or the symbol of something much larger? The news broke on a seemingly ordinary day, sending shockwaves from a Utah University campus across the nation. Reports confirmed the death of Charlie Kirk, the prominent and often controversial conservative activist, founder of Turning Point USA. He was killed at Utah Valley University, a focal point for the very political debates Kirk championed. Initial reports were sparse, creating an information vacuum. Law enforcement confirmed an active investigation, but urged patience, a plea soon drowned out by public reaction. The circumstances were declared under investigation, underscoring the case's complexity. Almost instantly, the fundamental questions, who, how, and why, became entangled in the nation's political divisions. Online, the lack of facts fueled a firestorm of speculation. Digital sleuths and commentators from all sides constructed conflicting narratives. Each theory, plausible or baseless, was amplified through social media, making it nearly impossible to distinguish credible information from conjecture. This digital chaos challenged investigators, who were now battling not just a crime, but a tidal wave of public opinion. The controversy quickly spilled far beyond the crime scene, igniting a national debate. The central question hung in the air. Was this a politically motivated assassination? This tapped into a growing national anxiety about political discourse. Historically, the U.S. has seen periods where political tensions erupted into violence, but many feared this incident could signal a dangerous new chapter. Was this the tragic but isolated act of a disturbed individual, or a symptom of a rising pattern of political violence? The answer would have profound implications for the country's future. While the investigation proceeded, the ripple effects were already being felt. Institutions like universities and corporations were instantly pulled into the vortex. Auburn University became a prominent example, terminating several employees for what were described as insensitive social media posts following Kirk's death. This decision itself sparked another fierce debate about free speech, professional conduct, and the responsibilities of employers in a hyper-politicized environment. It highlighted the immense pressure on organizations to navigate the storm, caught between their values and intense public scrutiny. In Washington, politicians rushed to stake out positions. Some issued calls for unity, urging the public to await the facts. Others were quick to assign blame, framing the killing as the result of their opponents' rhetoric. For his many supporters, Charlie Kirk was immediately lionized as a martyr, a patriot who died for his principles. Vigils were organized, and his name became a rallying cry. Conversely, his detractors, while condemning the violence, pointed to his own provocative rhetoric as a contributing factor. Blame was hurled back and forth. The national conversation didn't just spiral. It fractured into 1,000 separate angry arguments, leaving a nation even more divided. Let's break down the timeline. The hours following the incident were a whirlwind of confusion and grief. To understand how a tragic event transformed into a national flashpoint, we need to see how the story didn't just unfold. It fractured, with each new report adding another layer of complexity. September 16th, 2025. As law enforcement controlled the flow of information, reports surfaced that charges were being considered against individuals tied to the case. Citing sources close to the investigation, CNN outlined possible legal pathways, discussing the severe implications of state versus federal jurisdiction. For a nation watching, this was the first sign that the wheels of justice were turning. By September 17th, the story had gripped the nation's media establishments. The New York Times and other outlets focused on reactions in media and politics. Their front pages were dominated by statements of condolence, but also by partisan accusations as factions began framing the tragedy to fit their own narratives. That same evening, the conversation veered into media ethics. ABC, already under fire, faced new scrutiny as Jimmy Kimmel commented on the tragedy. His emotional monologue sparked immediate backlash, igniting a fierce debate about the role of entertainers in national discourse during a crisis. September 18th, coverage intensified. Amidst the noise, the Chicago Tribune highlighted how Kirk was being honored. They reported on spontaneous, candlelit vigils and online memorials, moments of quiet remembrance that offered a stark contrast to the loud, contentious debate raging elsewhere. Simultaneously, influential publications zoomed out. The Economist published a provocative analysis asking if the far left is to blame for rising political killings, placing the event in a broader context. Meanwhile, the conversation examined whether Kirk can truly be seen as a martyr, exploring the theological and cultural weight of that word, and questioning if the label could be authentically applied. In just 3 days, the narrative had spiraled outwards. It began with crime scene facts, but quickly expanded to encompass profound questions about American society. Each day, the narrative widened from crime scene facts to national identity, free speech, and the limits of political discourse. The initial shockwave had passed, but the aftershocks were just beginning to reshape the national landscape. This case is not only about one man's death, it has become a lightning rod. In the hours following the incident, the story fractured, becoming a mirror for a polarized nation. On social media and in the streets, the debate ignited, a battle for the soul of the story. Some argue it represents the dangers of unchecked political rhetoric, with commentators pointing to a climate where fiery language can have violent consequences. Others claim it reveals media bias and hostility toward conservative voices. This counter-narrative contends that the media was not an impartial observer, but an active participant, rushing to a judgment that vilified an entire movement. Still others see it as part of a much older story, the American struggle with political violence, stretching back decades. Historians remind us that the United States has a long, painful history of political violence, from the turbulent 1960s to more recent acts of extremism. They suggest Kirk's death fits into a recurring pattern, a tragic symptom of a nation struggling to reconcile its deepest conflicts. The Economist piece warns that political violence is no longer fringe. It is creeping closer to the center. The article argues that justifications for such acts are moving from the margins into more mainstream political circles, dangerously lowering the threshold for action for some. BBC reports amplify the emotional divide. For some, Kirk's death is a tragedy, a profound human loss mourned with vigils and private grief. For others, his name is now a rallying cry, a potent public emblem used to mobilize supporters against what they describe as a hostile establishment. And then there is the question of martyrdom. The conversation reminds us, martyrdom is not just about how someone dies, but how society chooses to remember them. It is a narrative, carefully crafted and fiercely contested, that frames a death as a purposeful sacrifice. We see this process unfolding in real time, through slogans and iconic images designed to shape a specific legacy. And right now, America is split on Charlie Kirk's legacy. The battle over his memory is more than a debate about one man. It is a battle for the future of American political discourse itself, with the answer hanging in the balance of a deeply divided nation. Beyond the politics, there are victims. Families left grieving, communities left shaken, colleagues and opponents alike forced to reckon with what violence costs. This isn't just about left or right. It's about human lives cut short and the dangerous normalization of hatred. Empathy is easy to forget when debates turn into shouting matches. But in the silence after tragedy, it's the loss, the empty chair at the table, that matters most. Visuals, families at vigils, people holding candles, close-ups of hands holding photographs, blurred shots of tears, pixabay footage of empty streets at night. So what does this murder tell us about America in 2025? Political identity has become more dangerous. Words carry consequences, online and offline. Violence is becoming entangled with ideology, and institutions, from the media to universities, are being forced to respond, whether they want to or not. This isn't the first act of political violence in America, but each one pushes the boundary further. Investigations are ongoing, trials may follow, but the cultural trial is already underway. Was Kirk a victim of political extremism, a martyr for his cause, or the latest symbol of a nation at war with itself? The answers will unfold in courts, classrooms, churches, and newsrooms. But one thing is clear. This story doesn't end with the crime. It begins there. Thank you for watching. Please return and subscribe for continued updates on life, society, and justice. And please, never forget the victims, because behind every headline is a life that mattered.